Melanie Weller, and I'm waiting for Stephanie Drury to join me live here. We felt like doing another episode of Rewiring Religion was really important given um, all of the things that are happening in the news right now that are really prevalent with uh, Donald Trump posting a meme of himself as Jesus and um, with uh, Pete Hegseth using a prayer from Pulp Fiction uh, at the Pentagon, and we're seeing a big confluence of um, religion and politics, and wanted to talk a little bit about what that's like, or what that's doing to our bodies, what is actually happening in our brains, and really the bigger thing for me is what is happening in consciousness. Like, what is the consciousness that's driving all of this? And we can really look at some historical patterns that really, I think, shed some light on this. And um, anyway, I'm still waiting for Stephanie to join me here. The technology of all of this is not my strong point. So, uh, anyway, I would love, certainly if you have any questions or comments or anything along the way, please put them in. And I believe that we're going to get them in the technology here and we can answer your questions. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, Mel.
So good to see you.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for having me.
Oh,
We were texting about my trigeminal nerve adjacent headache that I get, and it decided to kick in just now because it knew we were going to be talking, I think.
I knew we were going to be talking. Well, let's see if we can. I know last time we did a little recording at one point of me helping to settle that down for you, and we can certainly do a little bit of that uh, again. And I think the video ended up really wonky when we did it, uh, so I didn't publish it. But the uh, last time in our brainstem and cerebellum uh, really looks like the Hindu deity Ganesh, and where the eyes of Ganesh are the roots of the trigeminal nerve, and aligning that Ganesh imagery for you really worked nicely in settling down your
Can't see these.
uh, trigeminal nerve last
It
time.
did. It was magical. I could feel something
Yeah. All right.
happening.
Well,
Yeah.
well, let's like start a little bit off topic maybe, and let me see what's happening
Yeah, go
here
for
for
it.
you, so that you can have a. Oh yeah, that you can. We can have a good recording here. And this is like everybody getting a real dose of how Stephanie and I operate in real time.
Aquarius energy and Pisces, or sorry, Aries energy.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Activate.
I'm just trying not to burn down my life this month with everything in Aries. It's
Seriously.
the um oh, there went my camera.
Speaking of,
See, yeah, speaking of technology things, this is there we go. The There we go. How's that feeling for you? Is that so?
a little bit better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it my C1?
I haven't gotten there yet, but
Okay.
yeah, your C1's not sitting right either. The Which becomes important because that trunk of Ganesha kind of extends into your spinal cord, which is going right through your C1. So the pressure there will um, exacerbate that. I had uh, uh, one of the highlights of my week was treating somebody who was having sleep paralysis and
Whoa.
being assaulted during the sleep paralysis.
Oh,
Like it was really
terrifying.
awful,
Nothing worse.
where
Yeah,
she was terrified of going to sleep.
of course.
And uh, and this energy work, I saw her in person after I was got back in town, and she but after I did the remote energy work, all like her sleep paralysis went away, and the vision of the person that was assaulting her basically went away, or got really
Wow.
faded. And so uh, anyway, and then the in-person session uh, was another level of, it was interest. Like I always loved being able to get both of those things together, to do it remotely and in person, because I feel like I get a really complete picture then of what's happening. And she texted me yesterday, and uh, she's like, I'm uncomfortable, I feel so much better. Like it was
Not
just so
used to it.
unfamiliar. Not
Yeah,
used
of
to it.
course.
Yeah. Anyway, the
That's an allegory for spiritual abuse and any kind of abusive situation. If you're
oh,
used to it, then freedom and peace feels uncomfortable.
it is uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable. And I think that's a great segue into where we are right now collectively. Because if peace and love was comfortable, we'd all have it more often.
Yeah. Yeah. And not,
You know,
yeah, you wouldn't
and the
have
biggest
defenders
thing,
of war. Yeah.
yeah. And well, first tell me how you're feeling. Did that help to settle your
Better. Yes.
see one? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Thank
We'll see
you.
how it
Do
evolves.
you do in-person manipulations? Because maybe we can have a little meetup this year or something.
I do. Yeah. No, I have a whole office that I'm sharing with
Whole
a
practice,
couple of
right?
physicians now. So it's very exciting. Like who
I
am I
need to
back in the
visit
real
New
medical world?
Orleans. Seriously.
But the I, nervous system wise, I talk a lot about how we're really here for the contrast. That contrast is the language of the nervous system, and that we experience contrast over, certainly minutes, hours, days, decades, centuries, lifetimes, generations. Oh my goodness, my whole camera situation is just, we just blow up the technology together. I'm going to switch. I might end up switching cameras here. This is my fancy camera that I like to use. And
I just have a laptop camera.
and of course, right now it's not going to play nicely with me. Camera. And I don't even know if it's, all right, I think we might be stuck here. We'll see how it goes.
I mean, I can still hear you, and it doesn't
Okay.
seem to overheat
Can you see me
for
now?
super
It
long.
came-
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, you can see me now. Okay.
Yeah, I
All
can
right.
see you.
But, I think it's really, because it does seem like the world is on fire right now. And astrologically, we're certainly, like, that's a lot of what's happening. And this pattern of, like, this collision of politics and religion is very Neptune and Aries. When you go objectively over history with this is a repeating cycle. And one of the things, when the war in Iran started, and it felt very personal to me, because even my husband's retired from the Navy, but his business is almost entirely in the Middle East, so he's there a lot. And it so it has a direct effect on people that we know, and like good people that are living their lives. And the but my best friend does a lot of astrocartography, and she sent me that morning the planetary lines that were over that region, and a Mars line was going right through Tehran, and Mars would be the warrior.
Wow.
and a Uranus line was right adjacent to, very close by, and Uranus would be like the person dropping the bombs or the lightning bolt, like that outside force coming in. And it just made me go, we're living in somebody else's reality. Like we're just living, or we're living in some kind of program that, um, like, and I think we have free will within a bandwidth, but it really makes me question how much free will we actually have.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Oh,
and our nervous
100%.
systems can really limit our free will in terms of our trauma responses. But it was, uh, but I don't know. I take some amount of, comfort, maybe is the word, in, uh, or like knowing that I just have to work with this rather than against this.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have to figure out how to integrate this, or in seeing, um, I don't know. Like I just, it has shifted my own relationship with my own power, I guess, in a way that's actually been really helpful for me to keep myself sane versus feeling like
Yeah.
all of these big world problems are my personal problem.
Yeah. Well, I take comfort in knowing it's cyclical, and I want to say something to anyone listening who might have an issue with astrology, because I did for years. I mean, it wasn't just my evangelical upbringing; it was beyond that. I didn't think it was scientific. I thought it was mumbo jumbo. I thought it was like self-indulgent, like fairy fantasy shit, and I got my interest peaked in it when I was thinking about how I work at a hospital, how we staff the ER with more people, more doctors and nurses when there's a full moon. And then I started to think, well, there's more babies born in full moon. Obviously, the moon controls the tides. These things are all related. I mean, it's energy. Everything's energy. Physics, emotion,
Yeah.
so I was like, who am I to write this off? And then looking into the way, whenever, like you said, Neptune just entered Aries, whenever that happens, is it every 84 years or something? There's always a world
Longer than that. It's
revolution.
like
There's
every 160 years, something like that.
Oh, okay, there's some other
A
planet that
little
entered
bit.
some sign recently that
Uranus
was
is 84, is about 84
that's it.
years. Yeah.
And that's when the Civil War happened. That's when World War II happened. And then there's something else like Fall of the Berlin Wall. Nelson Mandela was,
Yeah.
all
All of
these
these
things are
cycles, yeah.
conjuncting.
It is
So
very
I'm just
cyclical.
putting that out there for people to not write this off and maybe just consider, is there anything to it? And like you were saying, I find comfort in it, because if we were raised within any kind of abusive system, or a household with an unstable adult, addicted or otherwise unstable, having Trump in office is activating our nervous systems. It is triggering all of my evangelical baggage, where there's an angry guy at the pulpit. Angry man, you don't know what he's going to do. You're at their mercy. And I'm just really grateful for the chance to speak to the way our nervous systems are triggered, and why we're affected. Like, there's scientific reasons for why we're so affected by this, and there are steps we can take.
Absolutely. And there really is quite a bit of evidence in terms of how our nervous systems, how when solar and space weather disrupts the electromagnetic field of the Earth, that it's measurable in our nerves. And my favorite study is a retrospective study that looks at like 1 million causes of death, or 1 million deaths over 25 years. And the ratios of solar activity to geomagnetic activity to cosmic ray activity go with very specific causes of death. So whether people die of a heart attack, a stroke,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
an accident, a car accident, cancer, or suicide, have very unique and predictable signatures in those scientific terms. And my love of all of that, I really came to astrology through understanding, seeing how uh, the signs and the planets that are associated with different body parts, and have been through medical astrology for thousands of years, like literally look like the body part, that it is
Yeah.
like we are, when I think of being made in the image of God, like we are geometrically made in the image of the sky, even down to our amino acids and our nucleotides. And I've been having a lot of fun recently breaking down peptides astrologically based on the parts of the sky that are made up of the amino acids, because I have a lot of patients taking GLP-1s and peptides for a variety of different reasons, and so that's been kind of a fun breakdown of things. But it's very, for me, it's very much geometry.
Yeah, and beyond being made in the image of God, another way of saying that or looking at it is the Big Bang, and we're all made of stars. We're stardust. Like there's, you know more about the science of
And
that,
that is
but
also very
to me, it's,
scientifically true.
yeah. So of course, our that energy out there, so affects us. I have a friend with a lot of chronic illnesses, and she pays close attention to the solar weather because she knows how she's going to feel a certain day when she can anticipate when she makes her schedule around the solar weather. And if there's some kind of storm, a solar storm, I was not familiar with any of this before she told me about it, but she's like, yeah, I've been in bed all day because there's some kind of
Yes, I know. I live
asteroid
in
going
those.
somewhere.
Yes, for a lot of those, I am very familiar with that pattern, and helping people with that as well. And now I don't know why I have a number on my face for the video. The uh, okay. Well, let me.
You do I need some codes to try to stream this, or were we talking about possibly trying to stream this live on Instagram? But I don't even
It's
know.
live on my Instagram right now.
Okay, well
I don't
that's
know if
good.
you.
If there's a way I could share it, that would be awesome. But I don't know.
Yeah, I'm.
I
Let
don't
me.
know. We're just a bunch of.
No, like, we're too
I need
old
my
for this,
kids to come in
Stephanie.
here and help.
We
Where are
need
my
we need our
kids?
children. I know.
I need them to come in and roast me while they press one button and then it magically is fixed.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. And this is, I know my camera always, I know sometimes it gets fussy when it's been on a very long time, but it doesn't usually go on and off this much. I really think that we summon some kind of crazy uh, energy here. Do, uh, so, um, tell me a little bit more about how uh, all of this is really directly. Talk a little bit more about your triggering in your body with your evangelical background, and like what's happening, and even with your evangelical background, how you're seeing uh, like the attacks on the Pope, and like how this collision of religion and politics is living in your world, Stephanie.
So many problems with the Catholic Church, and I
Oh,
have
hold on. Stephanie, you're cutting out. Like you got really fuzzy.
deep affection for parts of the chocolate. Uh, oh, it'll be good.
All right. If what we might do is just move this
Better
over to
yet? Can you
Insta.
hear me now?
Yeah,
I
now I
think I
can hear
fixed
you.
it.
That's better. Yeah.
Is it good? Is it good? Okay, yeah. I lost the connection for a second, but this news cycle, the Catholic stuff, the Pope stuff, is triggering everything for me because I have so many problems with the Catholic Church for obvious reasons, and I have affection for the Catholic Church. I have affection for Jesus. I have affection for the Pope in certain ways. I like that he is saying this stuff. I can appreciate that, and at the same time, it's like, what about all the stuff that is to what Trump is doing? How much of that did came through?
Most of it,
Is
it was just
did any
like
of
that
that cut
last little
out?
part, that like all the stuff. Yeah, my I'm really wishing we could um oh, I can't switch cameras while recording. Yeah, that's what it says. So we'd have to stop and re-record. But so we won't Uh, yeah, no, it's really, I mean, for me, it's definitely, I guess the word that or what I'm seeing around me is that it's really just highlighting the moral crisis.
As far as what's life worth and who.
Yeah, well, and I think people are really like the reckoning of their political leanings with their religious beliefs, and is this really, um, and like, are these two things like are they matched? Are they even? Um, uh, I grew up Lutheran. I didn't grow, and I certainly
Yeah.
know a lot of Catholics, and it, and I have a deep appreciation for ritual and like the comfort and, um, you know, that uh, gathering together in that format and having these, like, we're so deeply like above food, right after food, shelter, and clothing. Meaning is our next biggest need, and that's what religion gives us, is meaning. So we're so deeply wired for that. um, but when the it becomes obvious that, like, oh, I thought, like, I voted for this person because they uh, were against abortion, but now there's like all of this other killing, and how do I reconcile those two? Supporting one person, or one political party, or one thing, that is holding these very opposing things. And that's really, I mean, and like, it's just what we do in everyday life on a much bigger scale.
Yeah. Yes, it's and it really in our faces, and the stakes are really high. It's in our backyard. We're under the threat of nuclear war again, and um, it's not
Yeah,
something we can ignore.
right. Well, and for those of us that grew up in the
It's
70s and 80s when
easily
nuclear war was,
signature is
oh,
about. It's about bringing it cut out again.
yeah, you cut out for on me for a
Is it
minute, so
catching
that
up?
was,
Yeah, yeah. I'm thinking about how the astrological signature is right now is about bringing this stuff from behind the veil to where we can't ignore it anymore.
yeah. And well, and I think when you model if you're use like models of the universe as a big brain, which how I like to think about it, or that we're like a big body. When people talk about the body of Christ, but that, like, the universe is this big body. War is an expression of inflammation,
Mm.
and the part of our brain where our beliefs lie is very susceptible to inflammation, like from
Like
dietary,
physically?
physically. Yeah,
Okay.
it will kind of bear more of the brunt of inflammation more than maybe some other parts of the brain. It's called your ventromedial prefrontal cortex.
Interesting. I mean,
And
there's no accident to that because, like you were saying, belief gives meaning.
absolutely right. And we're more likely to change groups than we are to change our beliefs. Like, we'll just go take the same beliefs to a different group
That's so true. That is so
than
true.
change our beliefs. So,
Yeah, and we do it in relationships. Like, oh, I'm used to this unhealthy relationship. I'm going to reenact it because
absolutely,
it
absolutely. Yeah. We just keep
feels more
rerunning
comfortable.
the program. And, when I think about where, uh, there's so much inflammatory producing, um, so many inflammatory producing things in our food supply, in our, environment. When I think about, supporting coal miners versus clean energy, like, that's really supporting inflammation for those people that are doing the mining. When I think about dismantling
Yeah.
environmental regulations, that's promoting inflammation in us. And
Wow.
that's going to limit our ability to have a different belief. The research doesn't explicitly say that, but you can really, there's enough there to really make the case that that is true. And uh, and the pendulum really swings on this. Like in the 90s, in the late 90s and early 2000s, I was on the, uh, had a lot of patients and like kind of lived on the periphery of the anti-vax community, and they were all hippy dippy liberals at the time. If you had told me that anti-vaxxers were going to become Republican, I would have said you were out of your mind. But the pendulum
Yes,
swings.
it did. Yes,
The
always.
pendulum swings, and and this is just what we do. We keep going back and forth and holding this contrast. Um, so I think oh gosh darn it, I was so excited about going live, and like this just never really goes as well as I want it to. The
Part of the fun.
It is part of the fun. The my camera is overheating. That's why it's having a connection right now. The uh, the other thing that I really wanted to talk about with this is conditional versus unconditional love, because I did a deep dive into the neuroscience of that as I've been working on my book recently, and um, authoritarian. There's the Venn diagram overlap of authoritarianism, uh, religiosity, and conditional love in the brain is really high in terms of that neural circuitry. And I know when I grew up, I certainly thought that all of my, being uh, was dependent upon, that my love for my parents was dependent upon getting good grades, that my love
Yeah.
from God was dependent upon not sinning, that my, uh, that it was love was very performative. And that keeps us in more in our fear circuits, more in our amygdala, in our brains, and it keeps us out of the parts of our brains where compassion, tolerance, and connection live, which are really one specific area that's really studied around that is the anterior cingulate cortex. And I will caveat this, that the science is not, like, there's just not clean lines between all of us and how our brain works. Like nothing, these things don't work in isolation, but the trends are higher authoritarian levels of parenting and politics in your personal life. You're going to have you're running more out of fear, and you're going to regulate your fear with certainty, which is your beliefs.
Yeah, people say, why would someone go to a church with a pastor like that? And the answer is they grew up with something, they grew up thinking that was normal, or they grew up with such an absentee parent that they crave that kind of absolutism in someone to have that certainty. They're able to latch onto that certainty, and it just gives you life, gives you meaning.
Absolutely. It's and we're all wired for what's familiar, not what's right for us. And even if we leave that absolute, authoritarianism, or that, that kind of a structure, like, and we start to expand, maybe like open ourselves up in some ways, like we still can be pretty authoritarian about other things in our life. like we think we've switched, but sometimes we just put it somewhere else. So that we start becoming authoritarian about our diets, or we start, like I live in the city and I can feel pretty I would like to be a lot more authoritarian about who's parking in front of my house.
No, certainty feels awesome. Having control feels awesome.
Yeah, if I
Until it
was a,
doesn't.
it does. I always say that if I was a superhero, I would be Pneumatic Woman, and I would deflate people's tires for going the wrong way on the one-way streets in my
Hell
neighborhood.
yes.
I would like
No,
more
there's a
authority
ton
there.
in New Orleans. Yeah. I'm going to say that I'm live with you right now, real quick. But go ahead. Keep going. I'm just letting you know what I'm doing.
But, so, I think just recognizing that even when you're, like if you're really conservative, you're probably liberal about some things in your life. And if you're really, politically liberal, you're probably really right wing about some things in your life. You're just not identifying it
Yeah.
as such.
I know people, I don't want to call them friends, but I see it online a lot that people who grew up in fundamentalism then leave evangelicalism, whatever, and then find feminism, for example, and they're very militant and gatekeep, like you're doing this wrong about feminist. I call them funda-feminists because they're just applying. I feel like I'm talking to someone from when I grew up, someone in a church. Yeah, it feels the same way, and that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. It's like when, like my friends that have been, are in Alcoholics Anonymous, they all joke that they just traded alcohol for donuts, because they're like going to the meetings are big sugar fests. So it's just like they're still getting the dopamine hit, they're just eating sugar together rather than drinking together.
Totally. Someone told me that after he stopped drinking and started running ultra marathons, I go, you didn't go to recovery, you didn't start a program or anything. He's like, nope, just traded one addiction for another. So I'm like, cool, at least you know it.
Yeah, no, we're absolutely we're wired for what's familiar. And I think just honoring that and just the complexity and the challenge of like what it's like, being human is really important, because just being human is really hard sometimes.
It's the hardest. It just
Yep.
disappeared on me. My thing. I was typing. Dang it. I'm live with Embody Your Star.
One of the things that the anterior cingulate cortex does, it organizes timing of events, but it also it's really interested in conflict resolution or valuing, what's high conflict, what's low. Conflict, and thinking about how we, first, like my parents and their, very conservative, belief system, like I'm able to go, like, oh, my mom's just being very Jupiter and Saturn and Taurus, rather than like, or like my mom's got all of her planets in fixed signs. Like she's not going to be somebody that is going to be very cognitively flexible on her beliefs. And so she's just doing her thing. She's doing her humanness. She's running her program. And
that's really helpful to have that context, because then you can take it less personally.
exactly. Then it's not personal at all. And you can, when you put our astrology together, like one of the most helpful, this has probably been the thing that changed our relationship the most from my perspective. When my best friend was looking at our charts together, she said, oh, your mom just thinks it's her job to disrupt what you love and value. And I went, because that's our entire relationship in a nutshell.
I'm sorry, but
and so now I don't take it
know.
personally.
Yeah.
Because it's just it's just like, this is just what it is. It could, and there's probably another level of it that it could be expressed, but I don't, it's not personal anymore. I don't feel like it's, because she failed or I failed or whatever. This is the game that we're playing.
Hmm. Yeah, and to let go of thinking that person will ever understand it. Like to not need them to understand is massive in feeling
Absolutely.
free.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because there's nothing more codependent than going, I'm trying to hold this person accountable. I'm trying to get them to agree to counseling or to see my way. And just for years, I thought if I could say it this one way, then they'll understand. And now I know, like 30, 40 years later, they decided going in they weren't going to understand. Like it just wasn't going to happen for whatever reason. Maybe they physically couldn't, but with a lot of times I feel like a decision is made where, no, we don't get it. No, no, that you're just not making sense, and then you feel crazy. That's just how it works. That's how they stay safe in feeling their certainty. And we think we would feel safe if they understood us. But just the fact that we don't need that to come back around, I think has been completely pivotal in my freaking mental health,
Right.
basically.
Well, and not giving our large scale politics the power to take away your mental health or the power to take away your pleasure,
Hmm.
especially, and I get it, when it's really personal to you, it's going to, when it's your family member, but when it's, um, but again, it doesn't have to take away your mental health and your pleasure. You can really, uh, like not give it the power that uh, you don't have to give it the power to run your nervous system or to live rent free
Yeah.
in your nervous
Yeah.
system. And
I,
even when you have, when things are really personal, you can find humor and joy and have the contrast. And it's really healthy to have that contrast. I was just at a funeral, and it's really great to like laugh at the funny stories of the person that died. It's very healing to the grief.
hmm Yeah, that's huge. I was just saying to someone this morning that I just have such a hard time with people who don't have a sense of humor. It took me a long time to realize some people just do not have a sense of humor. That's how I survived growing up. So I don't, yeah, I just have no capacity for that. And I need to allow
Absolutely,
them
yeah.
that space. But
And
it
it's
just makes
okay to
everything
be,
so much better.
yeah, in the midst of a crisis, it's okay to be fully human, to have that full range of emotions and experiences, and not to uh, let anything keep you at uh, one end of the spectrum. And I think kind of springboarding off of what I said earlier about my relationship with my mother and understanding our charts together, I think that if we all understood each other a little more astrologically, like even like Donald Trump is a great example. He is living his chart. He's got an
Okay,
amazing
tell me
chart.
this. I'm seriously curious about this because you told me James Dobson's chart. You did
Uh huh.
that for me once, which was okay. That makes perfect sense. So please tell us about Donald Trump.
Oh, all right. Well, I didn't set up to go into like extraordinary
I know.
detail with it, but I will say that, like in the Vedic astrology system,
Which is
he has
Indian.
India. Yep, they have
Yeah.
several king signatures in it, and so he wants to be king. People will see him as king. He's just, you know, got an amazing timestamp on his body, in terms of that. The difference is, like, I think, in terms of when it goes well versus doesn't go well. um, and it's really, this for me kind of falls under talking about the narcissistic end of it. But, like, I think our egos kind of get a bad rap. Like, a really well embodied ego is a good thing. Like, you get to
Hmm.
be, your ego is what gets you out of bed. It's what, drives you to do good work in the world. People like Trump, the way that I see them energetically, they have a disembodied ego. Like, they are energetically empty to me. And so
Mm.
then people can project whatever they want to see on them because they're kind of like a blank movie screen.
Yeah. Because all the people that voted for him, are Well, he went after the religious right, because he said they were dumber. He said this 20 years ago. If I ever run for office, I'm going to go for the right wingers because they're the most gullible, and it has to do with giving their authority over to religion, to someone who acts like they know what they're talking about, and they're like, okay, okay.
It's real. A lot of people really want to be told how to do, and our whole educational system was designed around creating factory workers.
Oh my God. I was reading about this and
Like,
it wasn't
so
something I knew a ton about, but it was chilling.
yeah, like our system is set up for us to be told what to do.
And settle and stay small, get in
Hmm.
trouble for asking too many questions. Yeah. Yeah. It's capitalism.
Yeah, it's that, and I think it's even bigger than that because
Yeah.
it's
I mean, it's been going on since the dawn of time.
right. It's not like there's just a human like uh,
The current iterations have names like capitalism and
right,
religion, but yeah.
exactly. But I do like I think that yeah, I don't want to be like quite so reductionist about
Sure.
it. But there is something that like, and it's part of what keeps us together, keeps us as part of a herd.
Herd mentality.
You
No, I
know.
get it. And so it's interesting as you learn more about this, you do have some compassion for these people who just want to be safe. It's simple, it's basic. Change is scary
Yeah.
to most people, and the
Yeah.
system really takes advantage of that.
Well, and you have to go through so much grief when you change your beliefs, so much
Yes.
dismantling of your addiction to being right, so much of a shift of your reality. It's a big deal to shift your beliefs
Wow.
around something. And
That's
it,
true. You have to grieve, and that's not modeled for us. I
no,
think that
not at
people
all.
can't have conflict and they can't grieve. They can't do these vulnerable things because it's not modeled well.
Absolutely. The one of the best stories I know about this is from a doctor friend of mine who switched from internal medicine to doing functional medicine, and he ran a diabetic clinic. And when he started studying functional medicine and really looking at uh, physiology more deeply, he had to admit that so much of his medical school training was wrong.
Um,
And that was a big process. It's not easy because doctors are really trained to be right. We rely on them to be right. And there's a certain amount of addiction to being right that goes with any authority that you have in any situation.
yeah.
And, um, and not that like all of medicine is wrong. There's certainly lots going on there, but like he took some steps to like see diabetes and see uh, metabolic disorders in a different light or in a broader lens, and uh, and there's a lot of grief in letting go, and so like people's changing your beliefs is hard, and it takes a lot of feeling into hard feelings.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking about wanting to go to therapy with my parents 25 years ago, and their response was to disown me because that's how much they didn't want to have to change their belief. They didn't want to have to enter into this new framework of seeing the world. They said therapists always rake us over the coals, is what they said. And rather, they weren't able to reflect and go, oh, maybe I should really change the way I am, the way I do things, the way I see things. That was too difficult.
Yeah, yeah.
I get it. I would never do it to my kids, but
Yeah. Well, and that's just because you have a different energetic signature. Like when I tried to talk to my mom about her grief, and she lost her sister and her dad at a very young age, and and when I tried to talk to her about that, she told me that her grief was between her God and I. in a voice that almost sounded like she was a little possessed.
Uh,
And
that phrasing
yeah, that
even
her grief was
sounds.
between her God and I, and but she has a fourth house Scorpio, so like
Okay.
she's going to be really secretive about her internal world, her internal life, and like I didn't. That's not exactly was not my first thought about it in the moment.
No, no, no. But it's
It's,
helpful to learn later.
but later you're like, oh, okay, all right, this just isn't like this is not a world of hers that she's going to reveal
Yeah.
to me, or
Those
maybe probably
Scorpios
even
don't
anyone.
play. Good luck
Yeah, yeah,
with the Scorpio. I
you know,
mean, they're incredibly deep, and they have really deep and complicated feelings, and they're very sensitive. And
yeah.
like you said, the signature just makes certain things more challenging for certain people
Oh,
and
absolutely,
easier
yeah.
for others.
Well, and she and my husband and one of my closest friends and uh, like a few like and my Venus star the like Venus star point 'cause Venus makes a five-pointed star in the sky over every 7 or 8 years. Like
Oh, I didn't
are
know that.
all in 17 degrees of Scorpio. Like my whole life is about 17 degrees of Scorpio. Like it's the wild it shows up in the wildest ways in my life.
Wow.
And so like I know I'm learning like I hold all of those relations like the complicated relationships really differently because I have other relationships showing me the same thing. And like I was born at a new moon. I've got an Aries sun and moon, and I have so many Virgos and Scorpio suns and moons in my life, and those two signs are 150 degrees from my all of my Aries, and that's like people that speak two different languages, like that don't
Yeah.
really understand each other. But man, my
I was
life
gonna
is
say.
full of all of those people, and so it's good for not getting enmeshed and losing yourself in
Sure.
someone else. It
Yeah.
sort of sucks for feeling
It's a bright
alone a lot
point.
of times because like no one understands you.
Yeah.
But clearly, I'm running this program.
Good point. Oh, that's interesting.
So I create a lot of uh, like people don't get me kind of energy in my life. Which is
Mm-hmm.
so much better now than it has ever been. But like
Mm-hmm.
it's good to like own the program that you're running.
Well, like, Dan Savage's It Gets Better campaign for gay kids, LGBTQIA kids. I just think that with so much, like with religious trauma and deconstruction and like you just said, the grief that goes in hand with changing your belief system, deconstructing is full of grief. It's like realizing, oh, the family that I wanted and tried so hard to believe and kept it in my subconscious because my conscious brain could not process the fact that my family loves their religion more than they love me. All of that, um, it just there's nothing else to do but grieve that. You have to lean into that, and I think that that's why when a lot of people deconstruct, they kind of get stuck in an angry phase because you have a lot to be angry about, and people don't model anger very well, but it can turn into resentment if you're not able to move through it and have someone kind of Sherpa you through. What has
Absolutely.
been my experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I would say the way that I see it in the body, because grief and suicide ideation have a lot in common mechanically in terms of how they show up in the body. Like they create the same range of motion biomechanical restrictions. And what it does is it locks down, it's particularly your horizontal anatomical structures like your pelvic floor and your diaphragm and your vocal cords and the base of your skull. Uh, and um, and if the energy cannot move up through your body, then it's going to move out. And when it moves out, it usually is some kind of maladaptive um, behavior. Like it's like I'm going to eat a bag of potato chips, or um, I'm going to be really promiscuous, or I'm going to uh, um, assault someone.
Is that like for a dopamine hit? Like I need to feel something in order to release this grief
Yeah.
or
Oh, we will all feel so. We'll do anything just to feel something over and over,
okay.
for
Huh.
sure. Yeah, even if it's harmful.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, think that's why, like, as a teenager, I think that's why I read so much Stephen King. It was just so I could feel
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
and it took like
Wow.
that horror genre to really evoke, because I was so locked down.
Mm.
So yeah, we will do
Mm-hmm.
anything uh, to feel something. And feeling pleasure can be really threatening, or can be so unfamiliar that you don't know what to do with it, or it can be so, feeling connected, not feeling lonely can be, like, oh my God, if somebody's gonna know me, like, like that seems dangerous.
That's an invitation to get your heart broken if
Exactly,
you let someone
exactly.
in. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like we're all, uh, and the magic is really in holding what Carl Jung called the tension of the opposites, that you can hold these two opposing things to be equally true, so that a third thing can be born that couldn't previously exist.
That's so true. I mean, and I've found it only through, um, again, I'm going to use the word Sherpa, just like someone, and it's never been the same person consistently, but I feel like I've noticed that people will appear that tell me something I needed to hear at that moment that I feel honestly ultimately taken care of amid the chaos. Just my personal chaos, being disowned and really starting my deconstruction, being a new parent and like what's this going to look like, not having extended family now, and I have little kids and I wanted them to grow up with cousins, but do I want them to grow up with aunts and cousins who are there weren't Trumpers yet, but they had all the markings, and that's why I'm like, I can't have you people in my life, modeling for my kids. We don't allow people to treat us badly, especially people we're related to. Like, you don't make excuses for family. Those are the people that should treat
Yeah.
you the very best because of the connection. So people have just always appeared to me. What I'm trying to say, moral of the story is, I'm just very grateful, and I do believe in energy because things have just right when I needed them, they really do show up, and I feel like the online community is huge. My son Judah, who's 24, is really into astrology, and he knows way more about it than I do. And I showed him my chart the other day. I just I texted it to him, just a list of the planets. He's like, no, show me the chart. Like, he wanted the circle, and I'm like, I can't read that, but have at it. And he's like, oh wow, social media heals you. And I'm like, yeah. He goes, you find meaning and purpose in social media, and it has really brought you through some rough times. Like, yes. He goes, you had a really rough, he goes, I knew this, from what you've told me, but you had a rough family connection growing up, rough time, and finding family connection. And he said, you're spending, the rest of your life is about creating a cozy home, and finding new family and chosen family. So that was like, to bring it full circle, it's just really lovely to see my kid, who had no influence on him with any kind of astrology thing. Like, he got to it first, and he's kind of like reading my stuff for me, and I'm like, I feel seen by my Scorpio moon sun. This
It's
is
so
nuts.
good.
Yeah, yeah.
So good. Yeah. Well, and I think that if we have to have different ways to see each other. One of my mentors, who's probably in her 80s now, uh, she's from the UK. She studied with the Cherokee Indians in North Carolina and the Lakota tribe up in Minnesota. And she has a Lakota name, like she did a lot of legit intense work with them. And when she was with the Cherokee women, they had a ceremony and they invited her to be part of it. And she said, oh, no, 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 I don't deserve to be, I shouldn't be part of this. This is your tradition. And they told her that she was not Cherokee by the color of her skin. She was Cherokee by the color of her heart.
Hmm. How
And
lovely.
yeah, like we have to have new ways to see each other, to change any of our
Yeah.
beliefs, and to change the way that the way that we interact with each other, and the way that we can hold space for each other, and and maybe even be together with people that have wildly different beliefs, because certainly we share a lot in common. Like, we love our families, we want to be safe, like we want food on the table. We want to have fun together. We want to laugh. And, we just all disagree about how to get there.
Yes. Yes.
And,
I've been thinking about how, yeah,
no, go ahead.
we've like, well, we like all of our wounding, I believe. Tell me what you think about this. All of our wounding comes from like a broken connection, a broken emotional connection in some way. Do you agree with that?
Yes. I mean, I really think that it's rooted. I mean, at the end of the day, any broken connection you have externally exists within yourself somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But I think our deepest grief is for our mortal relationship with our immortal self.
Agree.
And
that has, I've always heard that, and it's been so esoteric until very recently.
And the world
So
does not let us
love that
fly
kind of
our freak
understanding.
flags as freely as our souls really want us to.
Oh, hell no. They punish you for that part. Yeah, they threaten disconnection. And, but like, thinking about how formative trauma is from betrayal by your caregivers and feeling like unmoored. And
Yeah.
then that's why we have people who are stunted emotionally, developmentally as toddler. You're dealing with a toddler. The rest of your, like, no matter how old they get, you're dealing with like a 2 or 3 year old when they're activated. And
But that's also why we came here. Like, I think that
Sure.
there's such a life
to learn.
right, and to have that experience. Like my childhood story is a lot about lost voice and like not being being forced to be in choir in church and then not being allowed to having to mouth the words, so not being allowed to use my voice while I was in it. And
I can never get over that story. Like,
and
the
then when
cruelty is insane.
and so then I specialized in the vagus nerve, which innervates the vocal cords. But as a physical therapist, the voice is kind of the last frontier because speech pathologists usually get the vocal issues,
Yeah.
in a clinical setting. And so, like, figuring out my own voice was kind of the last frontier for, my own personal vagus nerve journey. And then I did this karmic backstory workbook from an astrologer, and it said my karmic backstory was lost voice. And I was like, oh no, I have created all of this. And that's a lot of power.
And yeah, you created it, and I know a lot of people aren't on board with this, but let's just pretend like if we created it, like, what's more beautiful than like walking into a set? It's like running relay, whatever, training for track, like where you have hurdles, like it's all in service of making you better. It's challenges make you better. When I can look at it that way, it's like, that's beautiful. If we choose our incarnation, then then I pick, this is one perspective. Like, I hear some people who believe this say, we chose our incarnation with our soul group. Your family and people you run into throughout your life are all part of it. And they're like, ooh, what if this time I'm your mom and then I'm a total bitch. And then that teaches you this, you have this lesson you need to learn. This is a theory. It resonates for me, but, it's just all these things. I think that certainty is the enemy of healing and curiosity. So much of the time.
You need to put that on a bumper sticker, Stephanie.
Oh, I've already forgotten what I said, though.
Certainty is the enemy of healing and curiosity.
Yeah. I stand by that for sure, because I feel like my certainty has done nothing but fuck me over, like, at every turn. And then it's only when I started like softening and getting curious, then things, I got better, and I was able to be porous and let in the healing that I was so guarded against because I'd been betrayed by my.
Something else is always true, and that dismantling of that, getting curious versus that being addicted to being right. Like in the business world, companies that have more of a culture of what else is true, exploring what else is true, and how else do I want to say that? That kind of growth, like that it's create environments where it's safe for all ideas to be shared. whether or not they get used, those companies make more money.
Mm. Hmm.
Like it create when you think it's this way or that way, it is really constricting to abundance in very hardcore corporate ways. And I learned this at it's just straight business, like coaching, development kind of stuff. Like uh, Clairol, earlier hair coloring in the drugstore used to all be divided up by brand. And a woman she's passed away now, but a woman I used to know did some coached the CEO of Clairol, and got it took some convincing, but convinced him to redo the shelf, like get the drugstores to redo the shelves so that all the brands were together, organized by color, and their sales actually went up. The fear is like, oh, people, the sales are going to go down if I mix in with everybody else because they're going to choose someone else.
Mm-hmm.
But they made more money doing that. And so, and that's such a good metaphor for we're so tribal and keep ourselves so separate. But like when we mix ourselves together, we get more.
Yeah, completely. Wow, that's very meta. That happened with hair color. I love stuff like that. How it just always kind of comes back around, and
it does. Well, we went a long way off the Jesus memes and whatnot, but I think that it's important to I hope that for anyone listening that we created a little bit more of a despite our video challenges. Technology challenges here, maybe a little bit more of an understanding about what might be, that there's bigger things at play, and that we all have to live our karma and live in this energy and this bigger system that's going on, and that we need bigger solutions. And treating the nervous system is great, but what we really have to do is treat our consciousness. And on that note, Stephanie, how's your trigeminal neuralgia at the moment?
It's all better.
Ah, excellent.
Yeah, it calmed all the way down.
Social media heals you.
It does. I think it's a connection wound that I'm always this formative wound that is healed for me by connection. Yeah, I really think that's universal. I think that for people who were hurt by religion, you were hurt by a relationship. You were hurt by someone you had given your trust to, and there's nothing more tragic than a child. Doing that to a child. There's a reason Jesus said, you'd be better off with a millstone tied around your neck. So many people have really written off anything that smacks of spirituality, and you might use the word God or universe or something, but I if you can just all those same people seem to be into nature, and I think that's beautiful, because I feel like that's the same thing.
In my world, they're into music.
Yes. Oh my God. There's nothing better.
Yeah, and that's their spiritual
lean
practice,
into that.
Music. Yeah.
Lean into that. I used to go to Al-Anon to deal with my parents, my extended family, I believe they treat religion as a substance. So I'm going to Al-Anon to learn how to fucking deal with these addicts to religion who won't touch a substance, but they love their religion, whatever. And while I was there, they would say, oh God, I lost my train of thought. What was the last thing that you said? You had said something right before that. It was about relationship, and oh my God, I'm losing my train of thought more and more. I started thinking of that room I was in with Al-Anon. They had all these Jesus pictures everywhere, and I'm like, this is triggering. But they were so into the higher power. But they would say, maybe this is what I was going to say.
Yeah.
They would tell you, pick anything can be your higher power. Like the bus that brought you here. Some woman, her bus that brought her there was her higher power, and I really think that if we go out and just say, I need help in this arena, that somehow it will find you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The bus will take you where you need to go. That ties back into that great story, which I just heard um, retold recently about how when the uh, like a flood is or a storm is coming, and the guy says God is going to save him, and like a helicopter and a boat and like a you know or like he's warned ahead of time, and then there's a helicopter and a boat, and when he's gets to heaven, he wants to talk to Jesus, know why or God, and know why he wasn't saved. He's like, what are you thinking? I sent you a helicopter, a boat, and gave you advance warning. You didn't you shouldn't be here. But we are, yeah, that you're higher, like I think that like uh, that higher power shows up in many different ways, even when we don't recognize it.
Yeah, that guy was a victim of his own certainty. He's like, this is what my help is, my rescue will
That's
look
the great,
like.
yes, a victim of his own certainty. And I think that, yeah, that's we'll save that. We should talk about the victim, perpetrator, rescuer triangle, from how we are victims of our own certainty, where that exists within us.
Yeah,
That would be a good discussion for another time, because um, we all really love that triangle.
me too. Feels great. Feels
Does
familiar.
feel good. Blame somewhere. All right. Well, this has been such a delight to get back to a little rewiring religion discussion with you, Stephanie. And uh, I'm hoping to heal my relationship with social media, or get back on it a little bit more here coming up.
I mean, it doesn't make it easy. It keeps cutting out on you, so I
Yeah.
don't blame you.
All right. Well, thank you. And we will talk again soon.
Can't wait. Bye.